God's people to go forward.
You ought to let the devil know I win in a week, but I come out strong.
And the coffee is strong.
The word is what clothes us. The word is what shapes our thinking.
God has your miracle in mind right here on Stronger Every Day. Hello and welcome to Stronger Every Day, where we love the Word of God just like we love our coffee, strong and fresh, and the Lord always has a miracle for you in mind. I'm so glad you're joining us here today on the show. If you've not had a chance to download our app, please do so at the Google Play or the Apple App Store. Also, give our podcast a good like, follow, and a great comment. And if you're not able to watch the lives, you can at least listen to the podcast and be encouraged every day. And finally, give us a good like and follow on all of our social media platforms. We'd love to be a blessing to you. I'm so excited about this series. I love this series. God's calling and the power of the unlikely. We're out of 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 26. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. Here is a prime example of why you don't look at your earthly life as something to hold on to see that you're called. That's not God's will. He's got a purpose, a plan, and he's going to use the most unlikely people in the entire world. Yesterday, we talked about how God uses the foolish things to confound the wise. We talked about how the wisdom of God is foolishness to the world. Then we talked about how God's power is made perfect in your weakness. And then we talked about examples like David defeating Goliath, Gideon's 300 men. And then we talked about the world's wisdom cannot comprehend God's plan. Then we talked about the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom. Today, I want to talk to you about God's calling being rooted in grace. Here's the first one. We are called not because of who we are, but because of who He is. Your calling is not because of what you are or what you can do or what you possess or what talents you may have. You're called simply because God is awesome and chooses to use you and I. We're called because of Him, not because of us. We've got to remember that in this generation and in this culture. We are called because of who He is, not what we are. Here's what I love about this, number 2. Grace levels the playing field. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 8 and 9 says, we're saved by grace through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast. That means that we don't have an opportunity to boast about anything because we're saved by God's grace through faith. It's simply by grace that we can make it through every single thing in our lives. We're not powerful on our own. We're not powerful because we're strong. We're not powerful for any other reason, simply called by grace, and God chose us. Here's number 3. God's grace is sufficient. Did you know that God's grace is sufficient for every aspect of your life? Every aspect of who you are, every aspect of your calling, every aspect of grace to be a good husband, grace to be a good father, grace to be a good minister, grace to be a good son of the living God. You are graced to be exactly what you need to be in every situation. I used to tell myself this all the time. Sean, you're as anointed as you have to be to do the job you've got to do for every moment because God's grace is sufficient. The calling that you have, number 4, is an act of God's love and mercy. God's love and mercy chooses to use us. Think about it. We're the most wicked people on the universe because of the fall of sin that because of Adam that happened in the garden. We don't deserve anything but literal hell. But God, in His mercy, in His grace, uses you and I and chooses to love us in spite of our frailty, our failures, our frustrations, and more importantly, every aspect of where we go wrong. God's love and mercy chooses to use us beyond our own stupidity. And not just you, me as well. I'm thankful for God using us because His grace. And I want to tell you this: God chooses the weak to shame the strong. Excuse me. Grace empowers us to fulfill the calling. Wrong point. God's grace empowers us to fulfill the calling. I want to encourage you today, and I want to tell you that there is a grace on you to fulfill everything that you need. There's a grace. You have a grace to fulfill every calling that God has called you to be on your life. And I want to encourage you today and tell you that it's God's grace that is more than sufficient to get us right where we need to be in every day. Remember, God has called you, and the power of the most unlikely people is you and I, and He's going to use us to bring revival to a generation. We love you. God bless.